Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to my masterclass called Become Motivated and Driven. And it doesn't matter which way you say that because I just made a mistake. But the point is you want to live with passion and purpose. So we're gonna jump right in here and we'll switch to the next one. Basically, who I am is my name is Corey, and I'm a leadership development coach and mentor, and I'm faith-based. So I'm a Christian. And that's where all my values and things come from that are important to me and where I've had to realize where I'm at, what I'd like to proceed with. I'm also married for 24 years, have three young adult kids. We're all great. And the reason why coaching and leadership is so important to me is because I've gone through life many, many decades. I am 55 today. Over this, I'm going to be 56 this year, and I have wasted a lot of time not being as productive as I could, having the wrong mindsets, a number of different things, and basically just making excuses where there's really no excuses in life because we only got one shot here. And as a Christian, if you believe in Christ, that then you're going to have eternity, but that's beyond what we're talking about right now in regards to living on this earth and being productive and living the dreams we want and accomplishing the goals. So we're going to go to number 12. Define what and why is important to you, what you want to do, what goals you want to achieve, and why that is. Because I know for many years, I pretty much had great goals. Oh, I want to make $1 million. I want to make 10 million bucks. I want to travel the world. I want this kind of a car, this kind of motorcycle, these kind of airplanes, all kinds of things. But I never really defined why I really wanted those things. So it's so important that you get in touch with why those things are important to you. And another area is you may have defined that already, but is that out of touch? Is that something in the past that you wanted to accomplish and maybe it's not appropriate anymore? So before my wife and I got married, I had these dreams of basically all these bachelor dreams of doing all these kinds of things. And that was one of the things my mom told me because she lived a different kind of life. She had kids when she was young. So she told me, man, I was challenging because once you have kids, that's a 20 plus year commitment and you're always a parent, but at least taking care of and raising them is a 20 plus year commitment. So she said, hey, Corey, go and travel the world, uh, get your education, do different things before you settle down and have kids. And it can work any way you decide. You just have to make sure that whatever situation you're in, be honest with it and move forward from where you're at. There's no excuses no matter how you decide to push through life. You just have to figure out what challenges you have and how to fix them or who to talk to help you fix them. So really define why is important to you. And some of my reasons, which I've mainly defined in these last couple of years, are I have not been living my God-given purpose, which is keeping God and Christ separate from what I was doing. So you have to figure out, are you living based upon your purpose, based upon your passion, and are those your true values that you embody that's really important to you? So for me, it's about making a bigger impact instead of being so selfish and small thinking with my goals. Number 11, when it comes to finding your passion, there are many ways to do this. One thing, and we'll talk about a little bit more too, but sometimes we get stagnant in life. If you're over 25 or 30 years old, many times you're kind of beaten down by life a little bit, and you probably had a lot of great goals when you started off your career. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, uh, taxes, I'm not reaching my goal, limited time, limited energy. How can I reach my goal? And before you know it, your beliefs get pushed down below where your dreams were. And that's an important thing. I noticed happened to me, and I let it happen to me for way too long. And I know there's a lot of people out there doing the same exact thing. You kind of get lulled into this um, kind of this coma of this is the way life is, and you kind of get resigned to I can't do anything more. So some of the ways you can develop your passion is through questions, asking yourself, "Hey, what do I enjoy doing?" Maybe getting creative and doing some new things, some different things, because the choices you've made up to this point have gotten you where you are today. So basically, you have to decide, make different choices do different things to get different results. It's a simple equation, but many times I know I made excuses. I pushed some of those truths away and like, no, 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 I can do this. I don't need to make any different choices. I'll do what I'm doing because I'm pretty efficient. I used to think time management wise when I came into work that just getting my email cleared was a goal. And that was one of the first goals I did every day for a long period of time, not realizing that was just busy work. That was just placating to my need to have things clean and organized and fresh, but it wasn't getting me toward my goals. It wasn't putting the first things first, my priorities. So really sit down, remove some of your distractions, whether that's your phone, turning it off, setting it aside. It's YouTube. It's maybe exercising too much. It's maybe doing some things that you can maybe time block a little bit better for the amount of time you have and put aside some of that time for just thinking about what are you passionate about? What gets you going? What are your values? Where do you want to be in life? Who do you want to impact? Where do you want to travel to? What do you see in your environment in your life? So it takes a little time, and then even when you figure that out, you're like, well, I've already done this. I've already done this, or you may do it in the next week or so. Even though you get done with that, that can change over the next month or a year because life changes. You have different people in your life, different situations. Some people may lose a job. People may change jobs. Some people's families may be starting. Some people's families may be breaking up. So there might be a lot of different things, including deaths in your family or whatever it may be. But you've got to be realistic. What drives you? And then we'll get going as to how you can stay focused on whatever it is you're passionate about. And of course, message me in the chat or message me later. The word motivate to discuss your situation and your goals. Visualize your success. You have to be able to see where you're going. You don't have to see the whole path, the whole way, but at least you have to see a little bit down the road, visualize that success and what you ideally want it to look like, because you want it to hit your brain. I forget what Dan Sullivan said, something to the effect of, you want your brain to recognize what your eyes see, or vice versa. You want your eyes to recognize what your brain sees. Because if we're visualizing, most of that may be in our head. You can visualize with looking at magazine pictures, researching vacations, researching traveling or different vehicles. You can visualize through books. You can visualize through talking to somebody or listen to a story, researching success stories of similar people who have gotten or are in the process of getting some of the same type of goals you have. Or you can come to a coach, be in a mastermind group. You can do talk to a friend. You can do a lot of different things. But when you visualize, make sure you visualize with all of your senses. So if you're thinking about a vacation, one of the easiest ones to do, and I think one of the best goal setting techniques and strategies is when people set vacations. They are very specific about where they want to go. They can feel the warm, in most cases, if you're going down south to Florida, in my case, because I'm from Michigan, on to Florida or Belize or somewhere else in the world where it's warm, instead of being in the cold environment, they visualize and they can feel the warmth on their skin. They can feel their toes in the sand. They can visualize maybe they're with family, a spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, good friends, whoever it is. They can smell and taste the food that's being cooked right there around the corner, which is pretty amazing for when you're visualizing a vacation. And then with a vacation, you're also maybe visualizing what is that going to take cost wise? Do I need to save up for that? So visualize yourself saving up for that amount of money that you've researched that it's going to take for this vacation. Visualize you talking to the travel agent or setting something up online. Visualize all these different things and just experience it and really embody what you want to do. Because visualizing, if you can see it, you will start to recognize some clues along the way once you increase your awareness and you're working on this on a daily basis or a regular basis toward reaching your goals. Number 9, growth mindset. You need to have a mindset, unlike what I used to have. I used to have a mindset that was scarcity based and fixed. I had determined my beliefs were so low and I had such low motivation that there's no way, after so many years and decades of not achieving some goals, that I was I was finished. There's nothing I could do. I was hopeless. I was worthless. You've got to change that mindset and replace it with a growth mindset that says, hey, there is abundance out there of time. There's abundance of energy. There's abundance of opportunities. There's abundance of money. There's abundance of places to go and travel and experience. There's abundance of people I could connect with to find out how to achieve these things. So change that mindset from fixed to growth, and also make sure that your mindset, I don't know if you ever heard of the SWOT acronym, SWOT, but with that, that can also help you in that situation where your businesses can basically determine what their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, and threats are. And if you focus on those types of things in regards to whatever goals you're trying to achieve, you can figure out, well, gee, these are my strengths, these are my passions. How can I learn from opportunities? How can I have learning experiences that push me in a direction toward my goal, that I'm taking steps? You don't have to make 30% progress on your goal. You don't have to make 10% progress. It could be a 0.5%. But if you add those 0.5% up on a regular basis, you're going to get to 100% and potentially beyond that. So develop this growth mindset. And we'll talk about how you can develop that. Self-reflection. This is so important. If you don't have self-reflection, mindfulness, and gratitude, you can never tell when you are improving, when you're making progress. You need to be settled. You need to be centered. And there's different ways to do this. Mindfulness. A lot of people may meditate. They may do yoga. They may pray. They might have exercise or walking. But a lot of that, if you figure that out, if you look at many of those things, they're very simplified. And basically, it's using essentialism. We're removing all things that are distraction, removing most everything that's going to take away from that focus on your goals and everything. So have some mindfulness, get connected and centered to yourself on a regular basis. Also, too, gratitude. If you don't have gratitude, this is one huge one. If you're always saying the grass is greener and never appreciate where you are, what you've learned, how far you've come, then you're never going to appreciate, or you're probably not going to appreciate what comes up in the future, because you're probably always going to set, if you're like me as an entrepreneur, as a person, I always set goals. And then once I reach them, I set new goals like, oh, that wasn't good enough. I thought it was going to be better, and how I'd feel and everything else. And then you set another goal, and all of a sudden you're never satisfied with anything you've done. So you have to recognize, you have to reward yourself. You have to slow down to speed up. So slow down in terms of being mindful and really appreciating where you're at. Set inspiring goals. This is a tricky thing because some people love huge, audacious goals. Some people get turned off by that because, like for me, in my past, I tried to achieve these huge, audacious goals. I think the biggest thing and my problem was I was trying to develop a lot of personal development and mindset, but I wasn't coachable to the coaches or teachers in my life, to the experiences in my life. I wasn't coachable. I had too much ego. I had too much, really fear is what it was based upon. A lot of fear that, ooh, I'd have to step up, do something uncomfortable for myself. So sometimes the case is maybe setting smaller goals. And we can do this especially when we're developing your habits that you need to make actionable progress on your goals. Because if you set too big of goals, like some people do, hey, I'm going to exercise. It's the beginning of the year. I'm going to exercise on a regular basis. Some people, I think the statistics are, I don't know exactly, but I've heard most gym memberships happen in January for the whole 12 months of that year. However, most people stop coming to the gym in roughly February, by roughly February 14th or 15th, right around Valentine's Day. And all of a sudden that gym is making money after money after money throughout all the rest of the year because people's motivations stop. So they're not really setting reasonable, inspiring goals that you can build upon. And there's different ways and techniques to be able to build goals. I won't go into too much detail here, but set inspiring goals that you can really dig into and you can really connect with. Because sometimes we're competing with other people. Sometimes we're just comparing our goals to what's up online, and those are somebody else's goals. Those are not yours. So really get connected with that. And of course, if you need help with that, put motivate right in the chat here or message me motivate, and we can talk about your situation and the goals that you have going. Number 6, commit to learning and stay curious. That's one thing I did not do. I was like, oh, I finished college when I was roughly 23 years old. I'm done learning. I have done it. And of course, this was a long time ago, but I had totally the wrong attitude. Once again, that fixed mindset instead of a growth mindset. So you need to commit to learning. Life changes. If you haven't figured it out, as an example, AI, artificial intelligence, has changed the world just in the last few years. And if you think it changed the world in the last few years, guess what it's going to do in the coming year? Not even years, but just in the coming year, how many things are happening. And with that committing to learning, stay curious. There's going to be many times your motivation and energy are not up where they need to be, and that's normal. You're a human being. That is totally normal. Question is, how do we get back on track? And once again, we're going to cover some of those things coming up here, but just stay curious. This is how good friends end up being good friends. This is how people become spouses, is because one or both of them stays curious in the other person, and all of a sudden they both become fascinating to each other and are constantly learning and growing, rather than, I'm not going to be curious because I know everything. I'm good enough. So you stop investing in that thing that creates that enjoyment. So be curious and stay committed to learning. Because if you look at it every day, I tracked this a long time ago and I haven't done it recently, but I'm just aware of it. But I have learned something new, literally new, every day when I really sit back and think about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then sometimes, some days, I've learned many things. So that's an important thing. Commit to learning, because why are you going to stop on your goals? Just because you can't reach them in a day, you can't reach them in a month. Maybe you have longer term goals that you got to be reasonable with yourself and stay gracious towards yourself. Number 5, take action. This is one of the biggest things I did not do, is take action when meeting it and matching it with some of the goals and dreams that I had. I was so afraid. I love the personal development, love getting all the great material and information, but I just didn't take action because I was afraid to fail. And what I had to do over time is learn to reframe that failing to a learning experience. So now at this point in my life, I'm not as afraid to fail. I'm more excited about taking action because I realize that's a learning experience, and that's going to move me beyond where I was yesterday, move me beyond where I have been the last 5 years. It's so cool when you learn these new things that take you forward and create that progress for your dreams and your goals. It's so cool because life's lessons are this way, pretty much like in school. If you don't pass the test at the end, or however you're graded upon, then you're going to have to retake that lesson if it's not passed. I failed a class at Eastern Michigan University when I was there. It was a calculus class. I paid for it out of my own money like normal, and I got a D+ in it. I didn't ask for help, didn't ask for questions. I was too afraid to look stupid, and I didn't get any coaching, any mentoring, anybody to help me out with that. I retook the class, calculus. I thought, well, I've already taken it, so I'm sure I've gotten some piece of it. Dumb thinking, dumb thinking. I did the exact same thing I did before. I didn't ask questions, didn't get help. I didn't seek mentors. I got a D+ again. At that point, I said, that's stupid and dumb, and that's the last time I'm wasting my money like that. So I even tell my kids that story. Don't be dumb like your dad. Be smart. There's no reason for you to be dumb because you know this story and how I've learned from it. So don't have to take or learn lessons over and over and over again. Instead of doing things like when I was taking my pilot training as a private pilot, people have said some pilots do the same things over and over and over again. They never learn, they never grow. So basically, they're having 1 year's experience 10 times over. So it's 10 years of 1 year of experience. Don't do that. Learn and grow and keep adding to your repertoire, or your quiver of arrows, whatever you want to call it, your skill sets. And you also have to be accountable. Be accountable to yourself. Many times when we are trying to achieve goals and so forth, many times we're not accountable to ourselves. We don't keep those commitments. So one of the better ways I found for me personally is when you commit to something and you pay, you have a bias toward that coaching or mentoring, is what I was implying there. Coaching, mentoring, training. When you take that education, you're probably going to show up more likely if you pay for it. If it's a free training, many times you're not going to be as accountable in taking those actions on that training as much because there's something in our psyche that just says the value isn't there. So you've got to really watch that in your own mindset and make sure you're taking action and really being accountable to what you want to achieve. Because if you're not accountable, that's you're just not going to get the results, and you're going to run through this repetitive ness of not achieving your goals or making any progress. One of the best ways to be accountable, once again, is paying somebody. And really what I found is even if you don't pay anybody, maybe mastermind groups, accountability groups, maybe you have a friend, somebody you can bounce your idea off, and then you guys can keep in touch daily or weekly or whatever it is. And I found that to really be helpful for me. It's like, ooh, I don't want to let them down. And you're not really letting them down. You'll be letting yourself down. But it's a trick, a Jedi mind trick that you can help to keep yourself accountable. And then when it comes to habits and routines, this is so important. One of the biggest things, remove distractions. I personally keep my phone when I go home. I work in an office external to my home. But when I go home, I put my phone on the counter, turned upside down. So I'm mostly attentive to my family because that's a huge value. I discounted my family a long time ago, and I wasn't the greatest dad or the greatest husband. Let's put it that way. And because my attention was not toward them, my attention was always somewhere else. And then when I'm at work, I was wishing I was at home or doing something else. So really take action, be accountable, and set these habits that are going to set you up. And then with that, once again, we can create some small habits that are routines that you want to keep, and things that are growth mindset habits and routines. So one routine I've been able to create in the last roughly 2.5 to 3 months now, every single morning is my morning routine. I'm like, how early do I get up? And so it really it depends on the day, depending on my energy, how I feel, what's going on. Sometimes I wake up at 5 o'clock. Sometimes I'm up at 6:30, just depends. But consistently, I've done that daily routine, whether it's a 10-minute daily routine or a 45-minute daily routine. Ideally 45, but realistically that doesn't happen. But I can say I've checked off almost every day. I've done my routine. And part of my routine is reading the Bible, doing a devotion, praying, exercising, and reading a couple different books that I'm trying to learn skill sets in. Some maybe a mindset, maybe another one in regards to marketing or the top people in an industry or something that I'm trying to learn. So I put that in, so I'm always making progress. And then just recently, I finished a book that took me 2 years to finish. And you know why? Because the first 17 months, year and a half or whatever it was, I didn't do anything. It didn't make any progress, didn't put it in my vision to create that routine and habit. But now I'm making progress every day. Some people like to read a whole book, but I'm like, there's a few things I need to learn here, so I can make progress and really go deep in that content and try to learn, and then reflect on that content, and then find a way I can put that in my daily routine, or how I can use that today or in the future at some point. And so therefore I'm integrating it and embodying some of those concepts, some of those habits or skill sets that I have. Number 4, discipline. Everything takes discipline. Even if we're overweight and out of shape, that took discipline for us to eat poorly, for us to exercise hardly, and we persisted with that. So discipline also works for goals and dreams. If you stick with your discipline and exercising, and you exercise 3 times a week, maybe every day, depending on what you're doing, but maybe you can't do it every day. Not everybody has such a lifestyle, which is why at the end, it also talks about how you deal with challenges and challenging yourself to overcome some things, and then be flexible and gracious with yourself, because none of us is perfect. None of us, especially if you have kids. I know with me growing up with kids, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Come to find out, my energy wasn't always where I thought it was going to be, or I had a distraction, or maybe a sick kid need to take care of and come home, pick up the kid from school, or one of my children's. I sound like they're a thing when I just say kid. My apologies, no offense. But when I have this distraction or something, I thought my day was going to go this way, but it didn't. And many times, or with my things with my wife, or the car broke down, or challenges at work that I have a plan for today, but then a client needs help with something, an emergency that's truly an emergency that needs to be taken care of. Be flexible with yourself. And once again, Having that discipline is going to keep you in the game of what's normal for you. Whatever your discipline, whatever your habits are, that's going to be what's normal for you. And if we need to, we can tweak some of those habits so you're disciplined in something different, or you're doing less of something. Because me, I don't like giving up sweets, but I'm trying to eat less sweets. For me, I don't necessarily like to exercise all the time, or when I'm playing basketball, of course, you get tired running up and down the court. But I try and do less of sitting in that case when it comes to exercise, and more of doing exercise and focus for that period of time. And sometimes my exercise might only be 5 minutes in the morning, could be 25 minutes in the morning, whatever it is. Just be persistent, create the discipline and habits, and challenge yourself. Sometimes you need to get out of your stupor or the same old that you've been doing, and to spice things up. And there's other ways I'm going to cover here in just a second on how you can keep things spiced up, how you can stay on target, how you can stay disciplined, persistent. And then a lot of that flexibility is also going to be helped by some of the things I'm going to cover in just a second. And once again, if anything resonates with you here, type motivated in the chat or message me motivate, and we can talk about your situation or the goals you're trying to achieve. And once again, be flexible with yourself, be gracious, because we're probably the hardest people on ourselves, and we don't need to be that way. We're already struggling with many different things. Life comes at you, but we're trying to be proactive here. Number 3, surround yourself with the right kinds of people, the right habits, the right, all different types of things that you're doing, and people and influences and everything. And you want to have a positive influence around you. You want to be accountable. You want to be with somebody who's going to maybe be a good friend, but maybe a tough friend. And I look at it that way. The people I coach or mentor, I look at that as somebody who I'm willing to both be honest with them, but I'm also compassionate with them. Compassion is huge. Empathetic, empathy. With other people and understanding their situations. We don't need to beat them up because they're already beating themselves up in most cases. But surround yourselves with those types of influences. Being in the right environment, whether you have things up on your wall that have positive motivational sayings, what you say to yourself, what stories you tell yourself, that you're a winner, that you deserve success, or are you telling yourself, I'm such a loser, why can't I get my life right? Why can't I get things going? And then you want to have accountability with that. Once again, we talked about that earlier. Have somebody else, and you can even have an app. Other things, apps and things don't work as much for me, but people and other people I respect that have this same type of thing going on, that want to be accountable to each other. Number 2, reconnect with your why and let your ego go. Reconnect with your why, because once again, I talked about that earlier. You may develop your passions and know what they are, but it's changed. And that's one thing I didn't do. A long time ago, I stuck to, hey, I'm doing this because of this. And come to find out those are old and outdated goals and reasons why I was not really connected to my goals and really focusing on what I was doing. You want to let your ego go. I was not very coachable when it came to my mentors, friends' advice, things I saw online, things I read, things I heard through audios. Not very coachable. I just, I can do this without that. I don't have to add that number to the, if you look at a phone number, most phone numbers are 10 digits. So you got to add in, do all 10 digits in this particular example. Otherwise, you're not going to reach the other person you're trying to reach. So sometimes it may take every single aspect of that puzzle or elements of goal setting to be able to get what you want. You have to let your ego go, be humble, and also stop competing with other people. I think I mentioned earlier, you see, most likely, if you're like me, you see a lot of TikToks, you see a lot of YouTubes, examples of people, I made $1 million a month doing this type of program that I'm trying to sell to you. People will tell you that, and that's not realistic. And so stop competing with yourself. All you're competing with is, stop competing with them. All you're competing with is your previous self. Your future self is different than what your past self was. And you're just competing in that sense. How can I improve what I'm doing? Doesn't have to be 10x right this second. 10xing something takes time, but be gracious to yourself and making progress. Be realistic. And one of the top things is you have to find joy in the journey. I've heard us say many times that success is not a destination, it's a journey. And many times I would disregard this. I'm like, nope, I'm going to be happy when I'm successful in my goals. And come to find out, I was not successful. So that's something that's important to find out, that when you are on the journey, you're going to have challenges, you're going to have setbacks, but you need to find joy. So with that, I'm just going to quickly recap, and then we're going to go to questions and answers. And number 1 or number 12, define what you want and why. Find your passion, visualize, develop a growth mindset, self-reflection and mindfulness. Be grateful for what you have so you can then create that joy and awareness for what you do want. Set inspiring goals, commit to learning and stay curious, take action consistently, develop great habits and routines, have discipline, persistence, challenge yourself and be flexible, surround yourself with positive influences in your environment and be accountable, reconnect with your why on a regular basis, let go of your ego and stop competing with other people, and find joy in the journey. So I'm going to stop the share in just a second because we're going to go to questions and answers. Again, if any of this resonates with you, message me the word motivate or put it in the chat, and be happy to discuss your situation and what your goals are. So I appreciate it. And I have some frequently asked questions here that I typically get, and I'll answer some of those, and we'll see if you have any questions in the chat, and I'll stop the share here. All right. So with some of these questions we have here, one question is, how do I find my passion and purpose? That's always an interesting one, and especially my purpose in life. And once again, we talked about that a little bit, and that's something I can help you out with. But really, get with somebody else, or find questions that talk about your life's passions. What do you do? What activities do you do that you really get excited about, that really put energy into yourself? And these are ones that time just kind of passes by real quickly. That's probably the biggest indicator. You're like, wow, that went fast. I didn't realize I was here for that many hours. That's a huge one. Really sit down, remove distractions like your phone, and ask yourself some of those questions of what drives me? What motivates me? What are my values? What should I do? Is another question. What should I do if I feel demotivated or lack of passion for my goals? I felt this a lot and very defeated personally. And this is one thing, you have to have and develop resilience through different challenges and things. And you have to realize we're all going to have setbacks. We're all going to be demotivated or not have the same kind of energy that we've always had. One set of friends of mine from church, they were supposed to go on a vacation starting a week ago for spring break. Come to find out, the home that they rented, or the cabin that they rented, was double booked. And that rental agency or travel agency is not willing to do anything about it. The person who owns the home isn't willing to do anything about it. And they had some different choices they had to make. Either they're going to pay some different money, rent someplace else, go to a different location that's kind of out of the way, which will be a huge hassle. But when you have these things happen to you, are you just going to quit? Are you going to have persistence? Because that's the kind of habits you've developed in yourself, and discipline. Number 3 is, how can I stay driven and focused amidst some of these challenges? I kind of answered some of that. Some other ways are also looking at inspiring stories, talking to a mentor, talking to a friend, being in a mastermind group of like-minded people that you can bounce ideas off of and realize, man, we're all in the same boat. We have challenges. And one of those for me, for example, is just in this last year, I've been working on my marriage, going to marriage counseling, and I've been married 24 years. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have to do this. But it's not shouldn't have to do anything. It's about what's important to me. Well, my wife, my life, my family, my kids, keeping us all together, helping to build up our family, not allowing it to be torn apart. I don't have control over everything, but I do have control over the things and the direction I can go. For years, we've had issues, or there have been times in our marriage where we probably could have gone to counseling. But of course, I'm like, I've got ego. Why would I go to counseling? We can handle this ourselves and save some money. And of course, I was focusing on the money instead of what's most important. So even humbling yourself to go to counseling, that's probably one of the best investments I've made, because I love my wife so much and I love my family. Another question is it possible to balance passion and practicality in our careers, vocation, or businesses? Yes, it is possible to balance your passion and practicality, because sometimes you may say, man, I don't have my own business or vocation that I can control a lot, or you work in an office. Maybe you have some remote position that you're working or some hybrid situation. There are some things we can't quite control as much, but we can still have the right mindset in that situation. And when we look at our days, most of us do have some minutes, some half hours, some hours of time that we can focus on taking care of ourselves and prioritizing the things that are important. But what do many of us do the first time we have a break? And this is what I used to do a lot. I check email, check my phone, and the next thing you know, I'm on Facebook, I'm on the other social media, I'm going down that rabbit hole, and I'm onto something else. And before you know it, you're like, wow, I just spent an hour, I just spent 2 or 3 hours doing something that wasn't even important to me. I did it again, and I did that yesterday. This is why being centered, having mindfulness on a regular basis will help you to see those things. And it'll get to the point where as soon as you're about to do that, maybe less productive thing, I didn't say not to do those things ever. It's just put them in the right framework, a right time frame of achieving your goals. Because we're so limited on time, we're limited on energy, and we only live our life once. So why not prioritize those top most important things first as best you can, those first fruits like we hear in the Bible, and then add in all those other things that aren't so important. They're just busy work. Another question is, how can I sustain long-term motivation and fulfillment in pursuing my goals? This is a huge one. Once again, going back to having your own goals that you're motivated by, looking at them on a regular basis, creating an environment around you of support of people, coaches, once again, masterminds, things on the wall, sayings, the things you tell yourself, what affirmations do you tell yourself? What story do you tell yourself? So instead, for me, for example, I used to tell myself, what makes me think I can achieve these great goals? I've spent so many years not achieving these goals. And so I could tell myself that, or I could tell myself, wow, I used to not achieve goals, but now I'm on the right path. Now I'm disciplined. Now I'm persistent. I'm human. I don't need to make great gains every day, but as long as I make small gains that are pretty easy to do, all of a sudden you're developing those habits. So to create that long-term motivation, when you develop these habits and routines, and I also talk about morning routines and evening routines, when you set yourself up that way, they don't take very long, but they set your mindset up to have mental motivation or mental momentum, as I love to say. And when you get that, everything looks different in the day when you are prepared, you visualize, and you are making progress, and you review and reflect on that. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, I'm making progress. I'm turning into a different person. And that's one thing we have to remember. Just like God and Christ have created us in all things, we are also created in God's image and our creators ourselves. So we just need to take control, and we can do it. You can do it. I've done it. I still mess up on things, but it's an exciting life once you get control and you're around people doing the same types of things you're doing. Don't listen to the masses, but listen to your inner guidance and what is important to you. So it looks like that's it for questions at this point. I appreciate you joining, and you guys all have a great day.